Welcome to MSP Voice, the weekly show for MSPs by MSPs. Brought to you by Cloudberry, the #1 cross-platform cloud backup. Learn more at cloudberrylab.com. This is MSP Voice. Hello and welcome to MSP Voice. This is episode number 34. My interview today is with Rick Porter. He's with Cinch I.T. out of Massachusetts. Great interview. He talks about all the stuff that they've had to do in terms of success for Cinch, but also the fact that they're actually going to be franchising out now. So interesting discussion in terms of franchising opportunities for MSPs. So definitely take a listen to that. Our housekeeping items here, mspvoice.com, as always, your source for all things MSP Voice. We've got past episodes up there. We've got announcements about webinars coming up and those types of things. So definitely check it out. So we've got just a quick best of Reddit today. So we are going to start off with disparity across client technology. So this poster, who works for a mid-sized MSP, they have about 2,000 users across 100 or so clients. The issue is that he says that their salespeople, they take your money, right? They'll take anyone's money. They don't care about the technology stack. And what it's caused is the fact that, they're all over the place in terms of technology. So they've got 5 different WAP vendors, 6 different switch vendors, and 9 different firewall vendors. So it can be a little bit frustrating. So he's, asking, does anyone have a high level of disparity across their clients, or is this abnormal? If you do, how do you set it up? Define internal processes, those types of things. So he's trying to automate some, but it feels like it's an uphill battle. Thanks for any advice. So some good advice in here. The first one here is like, that's not normal. Part of being an MSP is reducing your cost by controlling the environment as much as possible. So yes, that does make sense. But what you have to understand is, how do you get there? And I think that's what the person is really asking about. So the next post here, I don't see a flaw with the approach of we'll take your money. The hardest part of business is finding new clients. But if you're a relatively small MSP, new clients come first. Basically you've got to kind of, and then what he goes on to say is what you need to do is over time, get them transitioned to your standardized technology stack. So, you kind of need to have a plan in mind, I think, with each client. And that's what a lot of other posters have essentially said as well, is yes, right now it's kind of all over the place. But what you guys really need to do is come up with a plan to get everyone kind of standardized, over the next 1 to 2 years, right? It's not going to happen overnight, but you definitely do want to kind of go towards that standardization thing. And then as you grow, then you can start to have it maybe even be a little bit quicker as you kind of get your processes defined and those types of things. So definitely some really good advice here. Everyone's saying standardize as much as you can. It's not an overnight thing, but definitely put a plan in place and you will get there. Next up is, how do you hit your service level agreement? So is there a system for consistently hitting your SLAs? So this person here sounds like who just works on the help desk, maybe is not a manager, just a tech, relatively new to this crazy world of IT. They have a great team of techs, but it seems overall there's a struggle hitting our service level agreements. Their manager is really in the office, so it's not like someone's in the trenches. Basically, it sounds to me like they're not hitting their service level agreements, and the manager is not really there and is not helping. So he's getting frustrated. Is there a system? How do you manage this? Dilbert09 here posted, I think a pretty interesting system that they've put in place. And this is fairly recent for them, but they've designed a roster for his team that seems to be working. There are 3 focus areas, and the team rotate weekly through them. So there's a triage where it's the first level calls, ensuring first response service level agreement is met for tickets and alert. The triage queue is expected to be on 0 at the end of the day. If it isn't, then you have to talk to the techs and find out why. Then there's the queue/onsite. Tickets that can't be resolved in 15 minutes go to this queue, as well as anything that requires an onsite. And then aged tickets, which is 5+ days. Basically, you're chasing vendors, trying to get the client back, although sometimes it'll be a ticket just filter through. But every ticket in this space is acted upon daily. Now, the interesting thing about this system, so there's three different ones. There's triage, there's queue, and there's aged. But each week they rotate through and each one and do the different roles. So it's kind of a, that way, you're not always on this triage. 1 week you're on triage, next week you're on onsite, the next week you're on age, and then you rotate back through. Now, he did say that when he put his system in place, he had, his team kind of banded together and almost revolted, and a couple of people resigned or said they were going to resign. But now that it's been in place for 3 weeks, they've actually kind of come back and said, wow, this is actually working. We really like it. So even though there was resistance at first, his team really enjoyed it, and they're liking it now. But again, it's a new system, but I think it's an interesting approach because like he says, because they rotate through it, you're not doing the same thing every day. And in the age, when you're working the age tickets, you have a better appreciation for people working on triage because you did that 2 weeks ago. So you know what it's like to work in that queue. So a lot of different benefits there. Whether or not the original poster is going to be able to implement this where he's at, since he's not the manager, I don't know. But it definitely is some good advice. And then there's a lot more talk in terms of tier 1, 2, and 3, and those types of things. But then there's other people that the PSA manages this stuff for them, the SLA requirements and the queues. So there's technology, there's process, different ways to look at it. But just I think it was an interesting topic, and some really good responses here on that. So next up, we have a new MSP starting in the Indianapolis area. So this person, they're starting an MSP. And they want feedback on their pricing model, please. So the business partner and I are both currently employed at a Fortune 100 financial services company on their leadership roles. They like the idea of keeping your product services offering as simple as possible for standard solutions, and then have the ability to provide customized offerings as needed requested. They try to make a tiered service offering where there was sufficient differentiation between the tiers, but also price it fairly for both us and the customers. So what they've proposed here is a bronze, silver, and gold plan. So and there's, I'm not going to read what's included in each one, but basically it's $1,000 a month plus $25 a user for the bronze, $1,500 a month plus $35 a user for the silver, and then gold is $2,000 plus $45 a user. And then each one offers different types of things. They're also looking at offering hardware as a service, or PC as a service as they call it, for an additional $25 a month per user. So some good detail here. And I think what's interesting, and I was actually on a webinar last week where they were talking about pricing models, is he says he wants to keep it simple, but it might be too complicated already. And that seems to be what most of the commenters are saying. It's you do all you can eat, because if you offer tiers, they're always going to pick the lowest tier just based on price. But you're going to have to end up doing other stuff anyway. So you may as well just do one price per user, out the door, all you can eat, and and it'll make your life and your customers' lives that much easier. And there's a whole range of different ways that you can look at in terms of, how do you price it, where do you look at your profitability, all those types of things. But again, most of the posters seem to be saying just do all you can eat. It'll make your life so much easier. This person says your pricing doesn't make much sense. 90% of potential clients aren't going to know the difference between bronze and gold and just pick based on the price. You should include all the workstation stuff in your base, then have a few add-ons and upgrades that affect your base user monthly, like DNS and backups. Also, do not store backups at your office unless you have proper data storage insurance compliance. So some other advice in there. But again, a lot of good things here in terms of pricing. How do you price your services? Jump in here on this thread if you like, and give them some advice. So that's all I've got in terms of best of Reddit. We're going to go ahead and get to the interview with Rick Porter. Great interview today. Again, he talks about some franchising opportunities, so definitely take a listen, and I hope you enjoy. So talk to you next week. Thank you. Hello and welcome. Today I am pleased to be joined by Rick Porter from Cinch I.T. Out of the Boston area. Rick, why don't you introduce yourself? Let us know your business and how things are going.
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Like you said, my name is Rick Porter. I'm president and CEO of a company called Cinch I.T. Out of the Massachusetts area. And I have, the company's been around since 2004. Like most of probably the MSPs that you talk to, it was a long evolution over time. A little background on myself, and then I can dive into the company. So for me, I really break it down. I can give you my entire background in really three categories, real simple. It really, for me, is education, motivation, and then experience. So for me, my education, real simple. I went to Worcester State University, local university here, studied business administration. My concentration was on accounting and finance, not because I love accounting and finance. It's one of the most boring things I ever did. But it was probably my biggest weakness at the time.
Okay.
I started my own business when I was 16 years old. It was a DJ business, believe it or not. So I had that entrepreneurial bug in me, but certainly, I couldn't read a P&L or tell you what a balance sheet was. So I thought it was good for me to go ahead and get that experience. Motivation is the second piece for me. I've always been a motivated person. I think a lot of that comes from growing up and playing sports and things like that, just the way I was raised. But joining the United States military was actually a long time dream for me. And so I did it. And when I joined, I found out I am a little bit more motivated than I even thought. And the military instilled a lot of motivation in me. And I ended up becoming part of the special operations community. I worked for the 75th Ranger Regiment, 1st Battalion out of Savannah, Georgia. So I got to go to airborne school and jump out of airplanes. I got to go to Ranger School, which is the Army's premier leadership school. So I really learned what motivation really is, which was great because later on I got to utilize that as a business owner. And the last part is experience. I worked for a technology company that did networking and voice over IP for about 3 years before I ever went off on my own and started my own business. So I learned a lot of valuable things working for somebody else as well. And then I still made plenty mistakes. So like I said, Cinch was founded in 2004.
Okay.
We started off as a break fix company like anybody else. And the difference is we learned very quickly that it's a miserable business to be in. So we, like so many people, transitioned into the MSP business as fast as humanly possible. And we've been fortunate. We've actually grown tremendously over the years. Our average growth rate is about 34% year after year, which I think is phenomenal. We've won lots of local awards, a lot of best IT service provider for a couple of years now. I was honored to win 40 under 40, top 40 business professionals under the age of 40, because I am still only 37 years young.
Wow.
And Cinch I.T actually was named. We made the Future Channel's 501 MSP list this year for the first time, which was a wonderful honor from us. So we've really been blessed to grow and expand, and we just try to do it intelligently along the way. And we certainly made plenty of mistakes, though.
well, first off, thank you for your service. In the military, we all appreciate that. And one other thing you said is that's kind of interesting is when you started Cinch, that you were doing break fix, and then now you're MSP. How was that transition? What was it like? Was it painful, or was it just, hey, we need to do this, and were you able to convert your break fix customers into MSP, or how'd that go?
So a little bit of everything. So the interesting part, and this is fun, it's actually a fun little story I can tell because we use it at orientation for all of our new employees. So I can tell you the exact conversation that made me decide that I hate this business and I want something else. I actually had a phone conversation. It was the help desk phone rang. I answered the phone, and it was one of our long-term clients. It happened to be a law office. And I'm sure this is a story that almost every MSP can probably tell you a similar story. And I answered the phone, and it started with a and I said, oh, great, this is going to be a fun one. Oh. And she said, Rick, I have an issue with these computers I bought from you. I said, okay, no problem. What was the issue? And she said, this thing's it's running incredibly slow, and I don't understand why. And this was back in the beginning days for us. And I said, well, you bought the computers from us about 11 months ago. I said, have you run any updates to it? Have you checked your antivirus? Have you done, what maintenance have you done over the last 11 months, kind of thing? And she said, well, that's what I pay you for. And I said, no. We don't have that type of relationship. When it breaks, you call me and I fix it and love to, and I send you a bill for it. She said, oh, I just need to get this thing working. I said, sure, no problem. May I jump on your computer? And we jump on the computer and we start to troubleshoot it. And just like a carpenter building a deck for you, when you're paying hourly, every time he or she takes a cigarette break or a coffee break, it kind of drives you nuts, right? It's costing you.
Yeah.
And that's how I felt like that phone conversation was. There was a lot of deep sighs on the other side of the phone. And we said, hey, would you like to go grab a cup of coffee while I work on this? And she said, no, I don't have time. I said, okay, no problem. So we worked as fast as we could. Now, mind you, listen to those words carefully. I worked as fast as I could. Not necessarily a good thing. We fixed, she got up and running. She was working pretty well. And I said, hey, listen, because we don't talk all the time, while I'm here, I would also like to check this and this and this. Maybe your backup, maybe your antivirus. This, can I do some of these proactive maintenance things while I'm here? And I'm sure you can guess the response when you're paying hourly. No, I don't have time. I'll call you back. And of course they don't call you back. And I literally hung up the phone in that one conversation and I said, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Really? No, this is a miserable relationship.
Yeah.
And I said, there has to be a better way. And by no means did Cinch invent the MSP models, but we started to look around for a better relationship with our clients. And we did a lot of research. And at the time, MSP was certainly a thing. It wasn't as pronounced as it is now. And we started to learn from others and started to take the good from their plans and not necessarily develop an offering of MSP, but honest to God, develop a better relationship with our clients. And that happens to be an MSP model. So that's how we got into MSP. Is it literally just said, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. There has to be a better way. And we found that better way.
Great. So, I was looking at your website. Looks like, how many, how fast have you grown? I mean, like you said, you've won several awards. Where are you at now in terms of size?
So I'll give you the shorter version. So 2015 until now is probably an easier way. In 2015, we had 6 employees.
Okay.
We now have 28 employees.
Wow.
In a matter of a few years. Yeah, we leased a space that was about 1,200 square feet in 2015. Today, we own our own 12,000 square foot office building.
Awesome.
And a lot of that is not necessarily just for today's use, but strategic planning for the future. We have some big plans for the future. And so some of that space is utilized for forecasted growth. But yeah, we've come a long way as far as growth comes, both internal employees, business-wise, and everything like that. This is actually the first year that we're eligible for the Inc. 5000. So our marketing director has actually been working with those folks, and who knows, we'll keep our fingers crossed, but it's just nice to get eligible.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a huge accomplishment. Like I said, as well as the other awards that you guys have won. Now, when it comes to, customers, do you specialize in any type of verticals, or geographic area, those types of things?
Sure. There's a lot of MSPs that definitely have verticals that they focus on. We have verticals that I would say we specialize in, but not strictly work with. So a lot of that has to do for us, I think, with geography and regulation. So we work with a lot of healthcare companies and we work with a lot of manufacturing companies. Okay. Now, I'll be the first to tell you, we're in Massachusetts. Those are probably the 2 largest industries in my area up here. So it's a natural growth. There's a lot more potential customers in that field. They're both also heavily regulated, and they both are very reliant on their technology. So they've really they turn out to be the perfect fit for us because they have the need, they have the desire, and there's a lot of them in our area. But I don't necessarily consider them a vertical. We do work in almost every industry. I can tell you what we don't work with, because that's a lot easier. We don't work with hospitality whatsoever. Okay. So we don't do restaurants, bars, or anything like that. And again, it comes back to that kind of that founding philosophy that I told you when we started the MSP, and it's all about the relationship. And to be very honest with you, I personally don't, and I don't want anybody from my staff to get a phone call at 1 a.m. from, let's say, a bar that says my POS system is down. I'm trying to close out at last call, and we have to go on site maybe, or try to work with, a bunch of intoxicated professionals. So yeah, it's honestly just a relationship thing of the hospitality.
Yeah, and when you go into hospitality, then you're talking POS, right, and retail, and it's a completely different animal than some of the other stuff that you do. So and there are people that specialize in that, and great for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Let them do what they focus on, and we'll do what we do best.
Now, when it comes to kind of like software for running your business, do you? I'm sure you have a stack that you use internally for managing your customers, but are you of the mindset that all of your customers have to be on a standard set of equipment, or do you kind of take what they have and work with it?
I would say it's a combination of the two.
Hmm.
For the most part, we do like to standardize. Okay,
Yeah.
so our MSP offering, so everybody's MSP offering is just a little bit different.
Yeah.
A lot of pieces are very similar, but they all do have some differences. Some are competitive advantages, and some are things just they do really well.
Hmm.
Everybody, of course, tries, pardon me, to standardize. For us, we do. Our MSP offering is an all-inclusive offering, right? So
Okay.
get the unlimited remote support and on-site support. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's rare nowadays, but there is others that do it.
Hmm.
So obviously, because we're providing that level of inclusiveness, we do want to minimize the level of support that's required. And
Hmm.
honestly, synergistically, that's what they want as well, right? They want to have no
Yeah.
issues. We want them to have no issues. And because of that, we do standardize. So for example, when in our MSP offering, every user receives an antivirus license. It's our antivirus. We happen to use WebRoot. It is
Hmm.
the antivirus of choice that we use. Our guys are certified in it. They specialize in it. They know it inside and out.
Yeah.
So we do that same thing with email. Everybody gets email compliance suite. So they get their email archiving, they get email
Okay.
encryption, they get their spam filtering. It's all the same
Yeah.
solution across all of our clients. So the vast majority of the software that the end user receives is standardized, and a
Okay.
lot of for that is because then we become subject matter experts in it. Some of the more broad things like the type of firewall a client uses, we
Hmm.
don't necessarily standardize it. Of course, we certainly have our preferences.
Yeah.
When it needs to be replaced or something like that, we would certainly make our recommendations, and we do standardize those. But we do, firewalls, backup systems, things like that. We're well versed in all of them and can support most of them anyway. So we are branding agnostic when it comes to some of those things.
Okay, great. Because like I said, I know different people have different ways of doing it, and they say, hey, if you're going to be my customer, this is the stack you're going to run, because it helps them standardize and increase profitability, and others, be more flexible with the customers. So
Absolutely.
I think both models work.
Absolutely. I can see the pros and cons of both of them 100%.
Yeah, yeah. Now, another interesting thing I noticed on your website, all the way at the bottom, um, is about franchises.
Yes.
And I found that curious. So are you kind of breaking out into a franchise type model? So if someone in their local town or community or state wants to start a Cinch I.T, they can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually really glad to know that you noticed that. That's actually new to us, and that's why I say that. So,
Okay.
kind of coming back to that growth that we've talked about, Cinch I.T has been fortunate enough to see some major growth over the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that was strategic, and some of that was just dumb luck, to be very honest with you. We have worked with a couple of large clients. Okay, some of them have international offices. A lot of them have multiple satellite offices spread out across the United States.
Okay.
So, and because of that, we are supporting those customers. Something as simple as onboarding those customers becomes a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
In 2018, we flew guys to Florida a couple times, Texas, Maryland, California, Colorado, all across the United States.
Yeah.
It's expensive, it's time consuming, so on and so forth. So we were faced with a real challenge at the beginning of 2018 as to how are we going to support these larger customers that are spread out across the United States when we're located here in New England.
Mm-hmm.
And our management team strategized about it. We also brought in our outside advisors, our CPAs, our lawyers, our consultants, our insurance people. We brought them all together. And what we decided upon was that franchise model is actually a great solution for us, and something that's not done very often in our space.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why it caught my eye.
Yeah, absolutely. There's very few MSP. Now they do exist,
Mm-hmm.
but they're few and far between. One of them was actually just bought out in the last month or so by a capital firm out of Texas, I believe. So it's rare. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but for us, for a number of reasons, it fit perfectly. And so now we are in 2019, we're beginning to open up franchise locations across the United States. We had several challenges there, quality control being probably the largest one. But so far, what we believe is that we really think it's going to be a very successful model. I've listened to a lot of your shows in the past, and one of the common themes that I think you're always looking for from the people you interview is what challenges they had and what advice they have. Our franchise program, it is designed exactly for those individuals and to answer those questions. So I'll be the first to tell you, just like many of the people that have been on your show and many of the MSPs that are out there, the number one challenge you have is scaling your business.
Yeah.
Okay. You start off as a single or maybe a two-person MSP. Okay. And those MSPs, scalability is the number one challenge. We've all been there. We go into that client and we are acting as if, right? You have to do it. And you're walking in there and you're showing them your offering and you're saying, here's everything we can do for you. And it's going to be amazing. We're going to be great. We're going to have the best relationship ever. I'm going to be the best IT company ever. And they're on board. They love it. They love everything they hear. And then they start to ask their questions. And the first question is how many people do you have working for you? Well, it's myself. Me and one other guy. And then you opened up Pandora's box. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. How many customers do you have? All right. When you're on site, who answers the phone? Well, I got one other guy. Okay. So when you're on site and he's on the phone, who answers my call? What level of responsiveness can you really give me? And what happens is it's a showstopper for new MSPs or new people coming into the business, because that's a hard challenge to overcome. And what I find is that one of two things has to happen. That business needs to take a chance on you. They really need to take a chance on you. And you need to find enough people willing to take a chance in order for you to be able to hire your next person and your next person. Or you find that unicorn that says, sure, I'm willing to pay the MSP, but I don't need responsiveness. Right? That doesn't exist. So it's a huge challenge. So when we started to look at, okay, if franchising is going to help us, is going to help Cinch I.T, that's great. That's wonderful. But if we're going to build this program, it needs to be a phenomenal program for our franchise owners. Okay. And so literally every little tiny thing that we did to design our program is designed to aid those entrepreneurs who want to own their own business, want to get into the MSP field, but they're faced with all those challenges. I'll give you an example right here. And so fun to say, you're probably the first person that we've told this to. You're an interview or anything like that. But we, to the best of my knowledge, even of the franchises that are out there, none of them have a national help desk center. Okay. They train you, they advise you, you get their sales material, you certainly get their advertising and their branding and all that kind of stuff. But the support resides within the local franchises. Okay, the on-site remote support. There are plenty of companies out there, and good companies, Continuum and things like that, where you can outsource your help desk and things like that. But again, you lose a little bit control of the brand, the quality. There is a lack of consistency, no matter how good they are, and they are very good. With us, that's part of this 12,000 square foot building we bought into. Is there's this room for growth. There's this room for expansion for us, because we want to set up a national help desk so that our franchise owners can go and sell. And when they sit down and they have those same conversations of say, how many people do you have? They say, we have 50 plus individuals, someday 100 plus, 200 plus, because they have the backing of corporate, which is the same standardization in the offering that we talked about, that, and it's one phone number, it's one email, it's one RMM program. There's one, ticketing system. There's complete consistency across the way, and it allows our franchise owners to really focus on the growth of their business. Now they're out there finding new business, finding new customers to work with, and handling the on-site support that we can't do here out of Massachusetts, all across the country. So the business model is designed for them. It's to make sure that they're extremely successful, but it also helps us in a lot of the challenges that we're dealing with. So it is a new program to us. It's a very interesting program. We have a lot of consultants and lawyers that we're working with. And for me, one of the most exciting pieces is there's nobody that really does it to the level that we're doing it. There's a lot of franchise. There's a couple. There's actually not a lot. There's a couple franchises out there, but it's not the same business model. What we're essentially we're talking about is combining like a Continuum and a Pax8 and combining these all into one franchise offering. And I think that's pretty unique. and I hope it goes over really well, and we'll see.
Yeah, well, like I said, it's
determined.
Well, I saw it on your website, and I'm like, I really want to ask about this as we're talking. So thanks for all the information on that. And anybody listening, if you go to cinchit.com, scroll all the way to the bottom, there's a button there to inquire about franchises.
No, I appreciate that. Selfish plug, right? But it does answer your question. I mean, these are the challenges that those those new MSPs really face.
So, just kind of, going back to managed services, and, we talked about your history and getting into it. What kind of keeps you driven in the MSP business? What is the best part? What do you really enjoy about this business?
I think this is one of the few businesses where we get to have a direct impact on our customers. And I think that's pretty rare. I think that in a lot of organizations, even in consulting side, your customers listen to you. They take advice from you. One of the things that I love is being able to work with our clients on a day-to-day basis and having a direct impact. Nowadays, technology is the lifeblood of every organization. What they do with that information and how they use it is so critical. So in all honesty, having a good MSP in your corner that advises you along the way, doesn't just fix and troubleshoot issues, but that advises you along the way, I really think that's become a competitive advantage for those businesses.
Okay.
Their technology, how advanced they can be with it, how well run it can be, the lack of downtime and issues that they have, it really becomes a competitive advantage for them. And so when we get to sit with them and advise them on some certain decisions or help them in their technology roadmap, I think we have a direct impact. And I love to see that personally. I don't necessarily care about fixing a printer. I don't necessarily care about creating a new email address, but those big decisions that we get to help advise our customers on, see those come into fruition, stay with we have long-term relationship with our clients. So we get to see those effects of their business. That's extremely rewarding for me.
Yeah. Now, so do you market like as a VCIO service, as part of that? Because that's, essentially what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I say our plan is our offering, our MSP offering is all inclusive, that's actually included with our program. So we actually go out, like many MSPs, we go out and we do quarterly business reviews with our clients. We have an ongoing technology roadmap. We have such good relationship with some of our clients that, they're thinking about mergers and acquisitions. Hey, I'm looking at buying a new company in New Orleans or Maryland. They'll actually come to us prior to getting all that done. And they say, hey, we're looking to buy a new business. And I say, great, let's do an audit. Let's do a technology audit of the business you're doing. I mean, think about the impact of that. Hey, you're buying a company in New Orleans. True story. One of my customers buying a company in New Orleans. And we said, sure, let's go out there and let's audit their technology. So we go out there, we run a cybersecurity audit. We do a full assessment of their technology. We come back to the business owner and say, hey, here's what you're buying. Antiquated equipment, old servers, old desktops, poor strategies on backup and disaster recovery. And so they got to bring it back to the negotiation table.
Yeah.
And say, hey, love to buy your business. Your price is X. I have to invest X into your technology from day one. The price is going to come down, or this is the end of the conversation. How valuable is that? Talk about making an impact on your clients. So
No, that's great. And, like you said, when you can show that you've had that impact on different clients, those types of things, helps you when you're talking to other clients, right? Because you can use that same story and those types of things. So being that trusted advisor, definitely one of the great parts. What's one of the worst things about MSP? What are some of the things that kind of bother you sometimes or wish you didn't have to deal with?
I bet you get this a lot. Vendors. My guess is you get that a lot. That's the synonymous, saying down in just about any help desk is we hate printers. Vendors, finding good vendors and to work with. It's so crucial for your business. There's a lot of good vendors out there, but there's a lot of bad vendors out there, and having to work. So again, an all-inclusive plan, we handle all that vendor management. So our clients, they don't worry about who does what, who's my phone company, who's my internet provider, who's my printer, scanner, copy. They just call us. We have all that information. We liaison on their behalf. So for us, that's time and money and things like that, right? So when they have bad vendors, it makes that experience very, very difficult for us. That's by far my least favorite part. Developing good relationships and slowly transitioning our clients to work with all good vendors um, is a huge piece of a technology roadmap for our clients, and it benefits both of us in the long run. So
Yeah, and then you hope that the good vendors that you're working with today don't get bought by bad vendors that in turn destroy the
Yeah,
relationship.
well, one of the things you're seeing a lot now, and I probably you've seen it too, is a challenge that faces the MSP industry is some of those good vendors, printers, printing companies, for example, are starting to realize that there's money in MSP, that there's value in MSP, that it's a growing industry, and they're slowly getting into the MSP world as well. So that great, you land in that great printing company and you love them and you recommend them all the time, or that great voice over IP company. We've come to find out that some of those end up becoming competitors. So it's, I don't think that we should fear that competition, but I think we should learn from it. I read something the other day that said Netflix did not put Blockbuster out of business. Exorbitant late fees did. So, those partners and those vendors coming into the space, not something we should fear, but we definitely need to keep an eye on it, learn from it. And, I think MSPs are starting to add solution stacks to their offering as well, so that they become competitive. They become that one-stop shop as well.
Yeah. So kind of, talking about the MSP community, just kind of, in dealing with vendors sometimes, but, there is a community out there. It's, a bunch of different places. And then there's also peer groups. So, do you consider yourself as part of any particular community or peer group, or, something that's helped you out along the journey?
Absolutely. Going all the way back to the beginning of our conversation, when we said, hey, I can't do this for the rest of my life. There has to be a better way. When I say we stumbled upon MSP, it's a lot of that was through peer groups. I think peer groups are probably one of the most beneficial things for my business. Everything from trade shows to peer groups. So the Next Gen event that was just out in California, phenomenal event. Tons of great vendors there. We got an opportunity to meet so many people. Well, one of the unique things they did as well is they broke up into peer groups, and we got to speak with different MSPs of all sizes, small ones, large ones, and we get to talk about our common challenges and things we're facing and stuff like that. Invaluable. Absolutely invaluable. There's other groups, going way back to 2000 and probably 10 or 9, Chartech. Met up with Chartech. I always say all the time, if you don't have to recreate the wheel, then don't. And so Chartech is one of those organizations back then that said, hey, we're going to give you the keys to the castle. You pay for it, but we're going to give you the keys to the castle. Take the good, take the bad, build an offering that is right for you in your area, and take it from there. So, you got technology roadmaps today, you got the Chartechs, you got all these, ASCII events and the Next Gen conferences. There is unlimited amount of resources if you have the time and the ambition to be part of them. And it doesn't also have to be just in the IT space as well. We find in our area, our local chamber groups have peer groups as well. You got business owner discussion groups where you can actually sit down with a group of 5 to 10 business owners. You sit down once a month and you talk about common challenges. Now, we're not talking about anything obviously in the IT field, but as you're growing your business, you're going to have human resource issues. You're going to have some insurance questions. You're going to have general business questions, and those groups are just as valuable for owners and presidents and managers of those businesses as well. So definitely we took advantage of every single one that we could. Because there's, budget plays into that as well. And so I would not tell anybody starting off as an MSP, buy a membership and fly out to every trade show on earth. But, look at those, find the ones that you think are incredibly valuable, and realize that you don't know all the answers, but you can find a lot of them.
Okay, great. Thinking about technology, and technology in general, whether it's work-related or consumer, what technologies are you most excited about today?
Oh boy, this is actually really good timing for this, because I just stumbled upon a new emerging technology about a week ago. I just read, not even, maybe days ago. Originally, I would have told you cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a hot topic. Now, cybersecurity has always been a challenge. It becomes an increasing challenge every day. What we are finding is that there are some phenomenal partners out there nowadays that can solve a lot of those compliance issues or headaches that you have. think companies like Compliancy Group or Breach Now, they have some pretty phenomenal solutions. And for the longest time, those solutions were out there, but they're incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
They're now becoming pretty affordable, where we as MSPs can actually outsource some of those roles and those functions. That's phenomenal. And any MSP that's not taking advantage of that, I think, is a little crazy. Because it's a huge challenge for our customers. It's a huge challenge for us. And there are answers that are out there. So that technology, being able to utilize that technology and those software offerings that are out there, that's huge. The one that I'm talking about specifically, the second piece, I just read an article, I want to say within the last few days, from a company called Electric. I'm not sure if you've ever heard about it, but it's an MSP called Electric.
I heard something about them just the other day.
Yep. So you and me both.
Yeah.
It sounds like we stumbled upon the same article, but they have raised, I think it was like $38 million in funding since their inception. And the real reason is they're an MSP that focuses on small to medium-sized businesses. So they sound much like myself and probably many of your viewers and MSPs that are out there. But one of the things that they're working on is artificial intelligence on the MSP side. So essentially they have a chat function that is human assisted with an AI function that supposedly can handle a lot of those standard routine help desk calls. I think that's pretty cool technology. God knows if it works well, if people like it, if it'll be profitable. Yeah. But I think that's pretty unique. I think that's pretty, that's an emerging technology that I definitely would want to keep my eye on. Nothing I ever thought about that, but I think it's great. I think that's ingenious, and it just shows you how evolved our market and our industry really can be, and it's still a lot to come. So that's great that they've got that much funding for it. So hopefully someone's actually looking at it and saying it's work, and it's not just a bunch of hype. So. Yeah, I don't know how they're going to be profitable with it, but I agree with you. Yeah, somebody thinks.
Don't worry about profits later.
Yeah.
So what about technologies that you're worried about or keep you up at night?
Honestly, I think it goes kind of hand in hand with what we just talked about. So. Our industry has seen an enormous amount of M&A over the last couple of years, mergers or acquisition after acquisition after acquisition. And I'm not so sure what that looks like for our industry long term. Smaller MSPs going up against well-funded, enormous conglomerates is a challenge. These companies that have 25 million plus in funding are going to be competitive.
Yeah,
they're going to be difficult to compete with. Arguably, depending on what they do with that money, they could make it, very difficult to compete with them if they invest it properly and it's not just thrown at advertising and sales and marketing. If they use some of those dollars to build their internal infrastructure, to train their people, to develop new offerings that nobody else can do, that's going to be a real challenge for our industry. Now, I'm also curious, it could go the other way too, right? All of these companies that invested all this money, who knows if it's a wise investment, and we could find a lot of them fall by the wayside, and you never know. But that's something that, I know we here at Cinch, we're keeping our eye on, because that's a technology that is emerging that we need to be aware of and we need to be cognizant of it. So that's a lot of competition coming away.
Yeah. So the other, I can kind of the flip side of that, because I've read some of these, some threads and different, groups and stuff about some of these national chains, right, that are trying to offer, this service. And a lot of people seem to think, at the end of the day, it comes down to the relationship.
I agree.
And some of these, nationwide conglomerates, or even ones that have funding or trying to do AI, they're not going to be able to build that relationship with that SMB that a lot of these folks out there have. And that's what, that's where it matters, is in the relationship.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that's why I say it really depends on what they do with that money. Because if they can invest that money and they do it in a way that still fosters that relationship or even further develop it, then I think they'll be extremely successful. Because I really do think the relationship is everything. So when we go through orientation with our guys, culture is a huge piece for us. And I always tell a story of a CPA office that we went to. He was actually, the CEO was having trouble at home, so we sent a technician to his home. And we went out there. A brilliant technician went on site, fixed the issue very quickly, very fast. On his way out the door, he noticed his TV was zoomed in. So he went above and beyond that little extra step. And he said, hey, you know, your TV zoomed in. You want me to fix that for you while I'm here? Nothing related to his job, just going above and beyond. He fixed the TV for him and he left. And the CPA actually called my cell phone personally. And he said, I just want to tell you, your guys are absolutely phenomenal. They're so nice. They're so great. Now, my tech had already, he completed his ticket. So I get to see the notes on it. And I saw that he fixed the issue quickly, that he did it efficiently, that he even went above and beyond. He put a note in there that he fixed the TV while he was there as well. And so I thought any one of those things might be what he talked about when he called me and said, you guys are great. You know what he said? Your guys are so great. He walked in the door and he took off his shoes without even... I mean, you want to talk about the level of relationship. Perception is everything, right? Client perception is everything. And you're absolutely right. With those large, national companies, if they don't maintain that relationship, they're not going to do well. I could go against a competitor that, quite honestly, their technicians have more certifications. They're brilliant technicians. They might even be able to fix the issue in half the time as us. But if we can have a conversation with our clients and we have it with a smile on our face, or we have a conversation over the phone, if we can have that personal relationship with them, they're going to hire us and they're going to keep us a lot longer than that other client. They're going to choose us over that client every single time because they want that relationship. About 3 years ago, one of my technicians was having a baby. And he talked about it all the time on the phone with our clients and things like that. He worked on the help desk. He had never even met these clients face to face. But he has a conversation, and in that conversation, while troubleshooting an issue, he's talking about the fact that he's having a baby. We actually got a phone call from a customer in Boston one day. They called into the help desk, and we said, Cinch I.T, how can I help you? And they said, hey, this is Susie Q. I'm calling from some ABC company. And is Zach there? And we said, no, Zach's not here right now. And they said, oh, did he have his baby? We said, no, he's just out today. Is there anything I can help you with? I swear to you, they said, no, I was just calling to see if Zach had his baby yet. I knew he was, his wife was due any day now. No, he didn't have the baby yet. That's it. They didn't even have an issue. They called our help desk just to have a conversation about whether one of our staff had a baby. That's the level of relationship. I don't know if you'll get that from those national companies that you're talking about. So.
No, that's great. So we are now up to our rapid fire round.
Oh boy.
Are you ready?
I don't know.
This is easy.
We're going to find out.
No, it's easy. It's easy. So just whatever the first answer that comes to your head. So don't think a lot on it.
Okay.
And we got 6 questions. Huh?
I said bacon cheeseburgers.
Oh yeah.
That's not it.
No, that's not it. Sounds good though. All right. First up, Apple or Android?
Android.
Mac, Linux, or Windows?
Windows.
Okay. Amazon, Azure, or something else?
I'd say something else right now.
Okay. So local backups, cloud, or both?
Both.
Okay. Should you always virtualize, yes or no?
Always is a strong word, so I'm going to say no.
Okay. And finally, which is worse, printer support or vendor cold calls?
Oh boy, printer support, hands down.
Okay. Well, after what you said about vendors, I wasn't sure what you were going to say there. So.
No, I'll say printer support. Cold calling. We, MSPs, salespeople, we make cold calls as well, right? And so cold calls, they might be frustrating, but they're necessary. I understand it. We got to do it.
Yep. No, definitely. So, before we leave, any words of wisdom or advice for anyone out there listening?
Words of advice for anybody listening. I would say, love what you do. Or try to find a way you love what you do. That's the beginning of this entire conversation with me is why did I become an MSP? Because I decided what I was doing, which was break fix, I did not want to do for the rest of my life. And naturally, like any, young entrepreneur or even an entrepreneur that with years and years of experience, we do this many, many hours every single day. So you got to enjoy what you do. And if you come into work and you're not, and you're an MSP or you're an IT person right now, and you don't love what you do in any, it might be a portion of it you don't love, or maybe it as an entirety, don't be afraid to pivot. You can still pivot your business. You can still make it something you love, and you're going to be very, very good at it if you enjoy it and you love it. So that would be my number one advice for anybody out there.
Okay, great. Thank you. Great advice. So Rick, Thank you again. I really appreciate it. It's been a great conversation, and I hope to meet you at one of these conferences or somewhere in person someday.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me again. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks.